I was left for dead. That's how my journey in entrepreneurship started. I left the corporate world and my finance and MBA degrees behind me to share my story. Welcome to That Entrepreneur Show, where resilience meets hustle. Let's build and learn from our guest now.
Your network's going to find you somebody who's a little less expensive and frankly more trustworthy because you already have some relationship. So if you put that out there, I'm looking for a coach, I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for somebody to invite to be on my board of advisors.
Today, we're hopping in to Will's journey, where he helps you if you're feeling overwhelmed, drowning in a sea of to-dos. Remember, you are not alone. Many solopreneurs find themselves juggling a million tasks, leaving little time for the things that truly matter. Will, welcome to That Entrepreneur Show.
Hey, love it. I'm here to help and overwhelm. And I wouldn't say I was left for dead, but I was definitely left in the monotony of copying and pasting for many, many, many hours. And I taught myself how to code and began to automate, 15 years ago. So been on this journey for a while.
I can't wait to learn all about that. He's developed a powerful framework called Automate, Delegate, Eliminate. It's centered around his unique 15-1-1-5 rule that helps you identify time-consuming tasks that are sucking the life out of you and your business. But before we get into that today, I want to welcome everyone tuning in to That Entrepreneur Show. Thank you for tuning in each week to help make this a top 2.5% global show. We appreciate you tuning in, and we appreciate all of these amazing guests. And today we have Will here ready to share his story. Will, before we get to all this awesome stuff, why you founded the Entrepreneurs Apprentice, DataAutomation, the 15-1-1-5 rule, I like to split this show up into phases. That first phase is, why did you become an entrepreneur? Why did you want to start coding 15 years ago?
So the first phase, the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge, I've always been an inventor. Like my dad, I wish I had the diagram. I'd have to go back through my stuff and look to see if we saved it. But I made this picture of this ginormous vacuum that would go over the top of the house and suck the garbage out of the trash can, because I was like so not interested in taking that trash can to the curb. So I've always had this innate interest in not doing monotonous tasks, repetitive tasks. And that has driven me to become efficient and to delve into automation in every facet I could discover. And then I found things I couldn't actually automate, i.e. delegate. That's where delegate came from. And then I found things that I shouldn't be doing at all, which was eliminate. So yeah, my journey began very young when I told my parents I was going to be an inventor. I didn't realize that I was going to become a digital inventor. Like the thing that I would build was SaaS products and companies that would connect A to B and clone entrepreneurs. But that's where it's ended up. I've been on that journey for a while, and invention was the beginning of my journey.
You're talking a lot of great things here, and let's help out any of our early stage entrepreneurs out there. We're talking automation. What's the very first thing, or one of the first things, that entrepreneurs should start to automate as they get past that first year or two in business?
Great question. So as you're getting in there, this is where the 15-1-1-5 rule comes in. So people come to me and they say, hey, like, what should I be automating? Get out a piece of paper, slap across the top of it, 15-1-1-5. Then every time you come across something that takes you more than 15 minutes a day, and we're going daily, weekly, monthly. Daily, more than 15 minutes, weekly, more than an hour, monthly, more than an hour. You need to be writing that down. So you write it down on the piece of paper, and then you put a tally mark next to it when you do that task. When you hit 5, that's the last one, 15-1-1-5. When you've done it 5 times manually, it's time to consider automating, delegating, or eliminating. And what you have to ask yourself is this actually going to make impact on my business? The answer is yes. Well, you probably shouldn't eliminate it, but we're going to revisit eliminate here in a minute. Maybe it's automatable. And I would use something like Perplexity. Perplexity is an amazing search engine tool, AI search engine tool, that if you were to ask it like, hey, could I automate this? It will give you a decent idea and even give you tool recommendations for how to automate that. Okay. So the world, we just had to Google stuff and hope that someone had written an article about what we wanted. That's long gone. We now have an AI that writes an article for us when we ask the question that isn't actually out there and needs to be aggregated. The second thing you're going to do is if you can't automate it, well, maybe I should delegate it. And what I've discovered is if I could teach this to an intern, and not just any intern, but someone who is like super hungry and excited, if I could teach them that in less than half an hour or in the same amount of time it took to do the task and they could reasonably follow it, that's an immediately delegatable task. Okay. If it doesn't match those, then you start to have to get into this space of like, okay, how do I write the SOP? Do I break this process apart? Are there steps in the process that kind of connect those dots? So what is the first thing you should automate? Nothing. The first thing you should do is start writing down this list of things. And what I've discovered is you will quickly find which ones light you up and make you money. You should keep those. And which ones drain you and make you money, and you should delegate those. So that is my version of a time audit. If you've read Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, he says create a matrix and score the things you're doing each week based on how much money does this make me and how much does it light me up. And anything that lights you up and makes you money, do more of that. Anything that doesn't make you money and doesn't light you up, probably time to eliminate that. Anything that doesn't light you up and makes you money, delegate that. There's money to be made by letting go of that and focusing on what you're good at.
Did you develop this 15-1-1-5 rule while you were leading Entrepreneurs Apprentice, while you were leading automation? When was that?
So 15115 came from DataAutomation because I had every entrepreneur under the sun coming to me saying, what should I automate first? What should I automate first? What should I automate first? And I would send them down the proverbial entrepreneurial rabbit hole. And many times they would come back out and say, that sucks. I'm never automating anything again. And I was like, well, what did you try to automate? And they were like, well, I had this task and it takes me like 15 minutes once a month. And so I was like, I'm going to dig in on this. I spent 8 hours trying to figure it out. And in the end, I did end up automating it. But I was like, holy crap, that took 8 hours to automate a 15-minute per month task. This is going to take years to get back my investment of time. Like that's ROI negative. I'll never do that again. And I was like, oh, guys, the first step is not, because if I were to throw out like, oh, the most important thing you should automate right at the beginning of your journey is email. For some of these guys, yeah, email's the thing they should focus on. But for many of them, it's not. And so what I would say is the right thing to automate is the thing that has the greatest impact on your business in terms of making you money and does not light you up. That's what you should automate first, right? And 15115 is built to force you, if you have ADD, like many entrepreneurs, to actually go through the steps manually 5 times. If you don't do it once, you should not be automating or delegating it. I've got so many people who I've seen come in and like right off the bat, they're like, oh yeah, I'll just, handle this. And I'm like, have you done this manually yet? And they're like, no, but I never want to do it manually. And I'm like, we're never going to be able to automate this. You don't even know the steps.
That's incredible insight. Thank you for sharing all that. Now I'm intrigued because we learned about where you were at with data automation. Now, what wanted you in that head to say, hey, time for next step, Entrepreneur's Apprentice?
So DataAutomation was all built on this idea of automating different processes. I was a Zapier certified expert before Zapier was even a really big thing. I had a boss back in 2014 or something like that. No, 2010, who told me, dude, this is going to be big. And I was like, okay. And so I dug into it and I started really looking at it. And I got really excited about everything that could be automated. I applied to be team member 6 on the Zapier team. And I've got an email from Wade Foster that says, you're just not quite enough of a coder. Later, they offered me a job, but it was too late. I had already started DataAutomation and I was doing things with them. I got to meet Wade Foster in person. I was one of the first Zapier certified experts and the first in the world that was both a Zapier app developer and a Zapier certified expert. And so I really began to understand this idea of automation and it grew into an agency. We got up to like 18, 20 people. It was all sorts of exciting and it imploded. The whole thing imploded. And I was like, what in the world? What happened here? That sent me into a depressive spiral, which was interesting. I went and got therapy. And for the past 3 years, I've been doing therapy and I've been kind of understanding my role in the implosion because I thought it was all about COVID and I blamed all sorts of other things. And what I realized was my ability to delegate was at the center of that problem. My ability to bring other humans along with me and go on my journey and treat them with respect and not project my old trauma onto them and all of those other things, that was the key. Because when I did that, when I dug in, man, we were running into problems right and left. Because if you're not familiar with this concept of projection, have you ever had a situation where you suspect that someone's upset and then you talk it out and you realize, oh my gosh, you're not upset at all? Where did that come from? That's coming from inside you. It's called a projection. You take what's inside you and you put it onto someone else. And it's a survival instinct. It's how we navigate the world. So for me, building Entrepreneurs Apprentice was about building a bulletproof, tried and true, guaranteed way to find your number two. How do you grow to the point where you have a VA who has VA level humility and CEO level grit? And I looked high and freaking low. I tried 7 different VAs. I fired 7 different VAs. I tried an executive assistant here in the States. I tried services to help me kind of connect all of those dots. And I realized what I needed was somebody who cared about this as much as me and was willing to invest in me so that I could invest in them. And I was like, okay, time machine, maybe a cloning technology. Time machine made me think, wait, maybe I could go back in time, find me when I was in college, and I'll just bring that guy forward. He'll care about it as much as me. And that made me think, wait a second, maybe there are young entrepreneurs who don't even yet know that they have this grit that I could recruit. And so I built an entrepreneurial cloning chamber where I can guarantee success, and the top 3% of the people who apply to that program get paired with an entrepreneur who's drowning, and we ride off into the sunset together, automating, delegating, and eliminating to help them scale beyond their current processes.
Well, congratulations on how far you've been able to take this idea into reality and vision. And I see the smile on you as we're recording. It's great to see the hard work now be paying off and seeing some great stuff. What's one piece of advice you would give to a business owner who's on the edge of burnout, but struggling to find support as they're having this momentum?
The first thing I would say is connect with me on LinkedIn. And I have an exercise that I've developed for burnout that I will send to you. And if you Google Will Christensen DataAutomation, or you go to equityhammer.com and there's a contact form there, and you just put, burnout article in the subject there, I developed a burnout script because I was in the middle of that and I was deep in my oh crap, this isn't going to work. Everything failed. I'm done. And what I realized that burnout is simply the vision you thought you had and the vision of reality are so far apart from each other that your daily grind becomes something your body can't even handle. It's like, I can tell that what I'm working on right now is not going to lead to extensive happiness, especially if it continues the way that it is right now, to the point where your entire body just begins to shut down around it. You avoid work, you forget doing important things, and your body's trying to protect you from the misery that you've created for yourself. So what I learned is you have to disconnect completely. And so the thing that I've challenged my clients to do is go spend an entire weekend in a cabin by yourself without technology. So go turn off all the laptops and everything, turn on a cell phone and turn it on Do Not Disturb, but allow your wife to get through to you and tell anybody that needs an emergency to call your wife, and then go completely disconnect for a couple of days. What I found is go binge watch Netflix or whatever else it is until your emotional state gets to a place where you're like, okay, I can now let go of all of that tension to some degree or another. Now I need to consider where I'm going next. And what you need to do at that point is pray and reflect. If you're religious, sit down. If you're not religious, meditate, consider where you're going. And my worksheet is the questions you ask yourself when you get to that reflective state. And they're going to ask you, who do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Why do you want to be there? Why is that going to be amazing? And all of those different questions are going to pull from you this part of you that you've been stamping down because you needed to survive. That's why you stamped this part of you down. It's going to come out. You're going to begin to understand your vision, understand where you are. And then the last question you have to begin to ask yourself, and this is the scariest part of it, you got to ask yourself, okay, I am here. That's where I want to get to. How do I do that? And my experience there is find a coach. Find someone who has been where you want to go. Good. Now you've got that 5-year vision in front of you. Who has done that before? There's someone out there. And if you start putting it out into your social circles, I'm looking for a coach who has done insert name of 5-year dream, who has built a software business, who has whatever. And you just start talking to friends, family, church, anywhere where you are. You just talk about, I'm looking for this person. Your network that you have right now will find them. You don't have to go Google coaches and figure out where it is. You could Google coaches. That's totally fine. Those are the guys that are going to be the most expensive because they've built funnels that actually work, right? Your network's going to find you somebody who's a little less expensive and frankly, more trustworthy because you already have some relationship. So if you put that out there, I'm looking for a coach, I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for somebody to invite to be on my board of advisors. I'm going to give them 1% of my company and they're going to get profit sharing for life. And if we sell, they'll get 1%. There are lots of really amazing people who for 1% will do a call with you once a month. And there's no monthly cash flow associated with that. And you just picked up a mentor and they see some potential and an opportunity with you. So that's my recipe for burnout is find some reflection, find out who you're going to be in 5 years, and then find a coach or a mentor who has been there and get on a regular accountability call with them. And I guess last but not least, can't find a mentor, find a mastermind, a group of like-minded entrepreneurs who are trying to do the same thing you're doing, and use that as an accountability group to climb out of your hole.
I feel like this amazing answer has been the culmination of you putting in that self-work over the last few years, now arriving to this place, am I accurate?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was so burnt out at the end of DataAutomation, right as it was getting to that spot. And the cool part is DataAutomation didn't fail. I was humble enough to let go of it. I was humble enough to fire myself and put another CEO in place, and it's still profitable today. It's a small elite e-commerce automation machine. And so it's still out there. It's still part of my net worth, right? That's a part of my journey. Well, now I focused on delegation and I've come to a place where I'm no longer burnt out. In fact, I'm excited about digging into work. We've grown, Entrepreneurs Apprentice has grown by 800% in the last 6 months.
Amazing.
So now I'm learning the eliminate part of my journey is getting really interesting because I'm having to say no to people who I think could have amazing impact. But the only way you say yes to the people who are going to have tremendous impact is by saying no to the people who are going to have amazing.
Being patient is very hard, but in entrepreneurship, you kind of have no choice. It's never going to happen when you want it to happen. No matter how much you prep for that moment to happen, there'll be a delay or two. But thank you for touching on that. We've talked about the before, we've talked about the during. Now let's talk about what you're working on right now, what you have coming ahead.
Great. So right now, Entrepreneurs Apprentice is built on the backbone of this entrepreneurial cloning chamber. And the Entrepreneurial Cloning Chamber is a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who join. And I haven't found anybody else who's doing this, but we've combined the concept of community, mastermind, group coaching, and staffing into one-stop shop. So you come join the community and it comes with an apprentice. It comes with group coaching on sales and BDR. It comes with group coaching on automation. It comes with a mastermind for you and a mastermind for your apprentice for group accountability. And it literally comes with the guarantee that you can't mess up. Like if you do mess up, we're there to help you course correct. You have a success manager that checks in with you for 15 minutes every week to make sure you're not deceiving yourself in your cloning process, right? So that's what we've built now. And we're right on the cusp of rolling in all sorts of new like email boot camp stuff because everybody who's still checking their email, they need to stop checking their email. They need somebody else who's getting in there. That's not a task we should do anymore. There's new tools. Fixer just came out. There's lots of amazing AI tools that you should be implementing in your business. And that's what we're building right now and have many entrepreneurs using and loving is that system and process to grow and find amazing people.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm excited to see it all unravel now that we are connected. But before I get your contact info, before I let him go, a staple question here on That Entrepreneur Show to close us out. If you could choose any entrepreneur throughout history, dead or alive, to sit down with, pick their brain, who's someone who would be on your list?
So I'm guessing that a lot of people have said this. And so
well, there's a reason that can separate the same choice. So your reasoning why?
Okay, so I would say Steve Jobs. And the reason I would say Steve Jobs is I gotta understand what questions that guy was asking himself to get to a place where he foresaw a future that no one else foresaw. the man literally changed the course of history with the touchscreen in the iPhone. Like, we didn't have anything out there. In fact, here's what was fascinating about that. Hundreds of people had created touchscreens. You remember, they weren't that great. In fact, there's still touchscreens out there today that mimic what there used to be. And that was as far as the technology had gone. The data pads on Star Trek, and you saw people kind of digging into that. That was a concept for sci-fi. And now I don't love what I've heard about him pushing his teams beyond, like the stress level that he created there. But I want to understand how he developed enough of a vision to see the possibilities of what was out there and bring unreality to reality. I'd be fascinated and to sit down with him and talk about what AI is doing and what, like, hey, by the way, since, AI is a thing now, what should I be paying attention to? Like, what, his take on that would be freaking fascinating. He talks about how there's a clip of him talking about how a computer is just like a bicycle. It just gets you from point A to point B faster than the paper you were using before. AI is a bicycle. Like, he already understood so many of these concepts. He'd be fascinating to talk to.
Let's delve deeper. Where would you choose to sit down to be?
Oh, man. I would probably go. He spent a lot of time in a spiritual journey towards the end of his life, looking at different places. I'd probably have him take me to somewhere he was like, where's a place we could sit down and just find some zen in terms of having this vision and consideration and meditation? Where's your favorite place to meditate in the world? That's where we would go.
And I can't think of a better way to cap off an amazing show. I want to thank you so much, Will, for stopping by from across the country out there in Utah, checking in with me here in Florida. Let's now let everybody know where we can find you online.
Beautiful. So you can find me online, equityhammer.com. It's got a brief overview of all the different craziness that I'm in the middle of. Don't love the design yet. We're still in the middle of, we have not needed any marketing to grow by 800%. And so I'm right in the middle now of trying to get a little better branding on some of that stuff. So don't judge too tightly from that perspective. But you can hit there, you can hit the contact form there, or find me on LinkedIn. And love to have a conversation about automate, delegate, eliminate. And I'm teacher first. So you can also find me on automationhunter.com, which is my YouTube channel, and a podcast I run looking for apps, hacks, and bounties.
Thank you for sharing that, everyone. And the last name is Chrisstensen. Get him on LinkedIn. I wanted to make sure that they got the right Will. The show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all podcast platforms. Be sure to leave us a rating, subscribe for the next show. My name is Vincent A. Lancey, and with that, we are signing off today for another great show. A big shout out to our sponsors, johnford.com, Coming Alive Podcast Production.com. We're signing off. We're both cold here. We're a little lower than usual as well. We're not used to it, but thanks a lot, Will.
Happy to be here.